Act 1. The Crucible of Modern Desires. We live in an era of quiet desperation, where men build their entire self-worth on the shifting sands of external validation. We have been sold a modern fairy tale of absolute, unconditional romance, only to find ourselves blindsided by the cold, unyielding laws of human psychology. What if the source of your frustration is not the behavior of others, but your refusal to see human nature exactly as it is? Consider the silent panic that gripes a man when he senses his partner's eyes wandering. Observe the quiet insecurity that builds when a relationship begins to feel transactional, exhausting, and fragile. We fight against these realities. We rage against the nature of attraction, wishing it were simple, fair, and perfectly symmetrical. But nature operates on its own laws, entirely indifferent to our moral ideals or emotional wishes. To navigate this landscape without losing your sanity, you must adopt the posture of a stoic investigator. You must learn to look at human behavior not through the lens of resentment, but with the calm, diagnostic clarity of a physician. The ancient philosophers understood that suffering does not come from external events, but from the false judgments we form about them. When we expect human beings to act contrary to their biological and psychological programming, we set ourselves up for inevitable betrayal. The moment we strip away the illusions and accept the raw, unvarnished truth, we find something unexpected: absolute freedom. This is not a guide on how to be bitter. This is an exploration of reality. It is a blueprint for the modern man who wishes to transition from a passive spectator of his own emotional ruin to a sovereign ruler of his own life. Have you ever wondered why, despite your best efforts, the dynamics of desire always seem to slip through your fingers? Why does a woman's interest seem to evaporate the moment you become completely secure, predictable, and available? The answers lie in 5 uncomfortable truths about human attraction, truths that are rarely spoken aloud, but which govern every romantic interaction you will ever have. To master them is to master the game. To ignore them is to remain a permanent victim of it. Act 2. The Illusion of Monopolized Desire. Let us begin with the first, and perhaps most painful, blow to the ego: the realization that you can never truly monopolize another person's perception of value. You can train your body to peak physical condition. You can build financial abundance, master the art of conversation, dress with immaculate style, and hold yourself with absolute confidence. Yet, no matter how exceptional you become, there will always be another man who possesses a trait you lack. There will always be someone taller, wealthier, more physically striking, or more socially dominant. This is not an indictment of any individual's character. It is a fundamental law of biological perception. Human beings are hardwired to notice and evaluate excellence. When a woman catches sight of a highly attractive, high-status man on a screen, in a public space, or within her social circle, her biology registers that value. She cannot simply switch off millions of years of evolutionary programming that whisper of genetic superiority and resource abundance. How does the average man react to this reality? He reacts with jealousy, possessiveness, and a desperate desire to control. He demands reassurance, monitors his partner's gaze, and grows toxic with insecurity. In doing so, he unknowingly accelerates his own downfall. He signals to his partner that he views himself as inferior, that he is terrified of competition, and that his value is fragile. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus offered a profound alternative to this self-sabotaging behavior. He observed, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When you apply this wisdom to modern attraction, your relationship with insecurity undergoes a radical transformation. You accept that comparison is an immutable feature of human existence. You realize that you cannot control another person's subconscious biological reactions. You can only control your own mind, your own actions, and your own character. Instead of fighting the reality of comparison, the sovereign man embraces it. He understands that trying to be the single, ultimate end-all for anyone is a pursuit of a phantom. He detaches his self-worth from his partner's absolute, singular focus. This detachment does not breed coldness. Rather, it breeds an unshakable peace. By accepting that attraction is fluid and that options are infinite, he frees himself from the illusion of ownership. He knows that his partner is with him by choice, not by lack of other possibilities. And if that choice should ever change, he knows his own value remains entirely intact. He does not fear losing her, because his foundation is built within himself, not within her opinion of him. Act 3. The Sanctuary of Illusion. There is a peculiar paradox at the heart of human relationships. We claim to desire absolute truth, yet we constantly seek shelter in comforting illusions. This brings us to the second hard truth of our exploration: the psychological necessity of the protective narrative. In our modern culture, we are taught that radical honesty is the ultimate foundation of intimacy. We are encouraged to lay bare all our thoughts, our doubts, our mistakes, and our vulnerabilities. Yet, anyone who has navigated the high-stakes world of attraction knows that raw, unfiltered reality is often highly disruptive to romantic desire. Particularly in dynamics where there is a high degree of social and physical value, a certain level of mystique and protective narrative is not only preferred, it is actively demanded. Consider the subtle dance of a high-value relationship. A woman may be highly intelligent, fully capable of logical deduction, and aware of her partner's options and actions. She knows, deep down, that a powerful, attractive man lives in a world of abundance. Yet, she rarely wishes to have that reality thrust directly into her face. She does not want to hear the graphic details, nor does she want to confront the unpolished truth of his options. To do so forces her to confront feelings of replaceability, wounding her social pride and disrupting her emotional sanctuary. Instead, she often prefers the preservation of the fantasy. She desires a narrative that allows her to feel singular, cherished, and secure within her immediate frame, even if her rational mind understands the broader reality. This is not an endorsement of malicious deceit. Rather, it is an understanding of emotional framing. It is the recognition that human beings interact with stories, not raw data points. Seneca, in his letters on grief and human nature, noted that we often suffer more in imagination than in reality. When we force a partner to confront harsh, unpolished truths unnecessarily, we are not practicing honesty. We are practicing a form of clumsy emotional vandalism. We are shattering the very aesthetic of romance that keeps desire alive. To navigate this, a sovereign man must master the art of the unsaid. He does not boast of his options, nor does he use his value to humiliate or create cheap jealousy. He maintains his boundaries with absolute composure. He understands that a woman's emotional comfort relies on his ability to hold a secure, stable frame, one that protects her from unnecessary harshness while maintaining his own internal truth. If you are always entirely transparent about every passing thought, every minor detail, and every external interaction, you do not build trust. You simply transfer your own anxiety onto her, eroding the masculine stoicism that she fell for in the first place. You become predictable, common, and devoid of the mystery that fuels raw attraction. When was the last time you allowed a silence to speak for you, instead of rushing to explain away your life? Act 4. The Crucible of Hypergamy. Let us delve deeper into the evolutionary machinery of desire. There is an old, cynical saying that a woman would rather share a king than be the sole possessor of a peasant. While the language is provocative, the psychological reality beneath it is ancient, profound, and undeniable. We must look at this through the lens of evolutionary biology. For hundreds of thousands of years, a woman's survival and the survival of her offspring depended entirely on the status, strength, and resource capability of her partner. To pair with a low-status, weak, or isolated male was a high-risk gamble that often ended in tragedy. Consequently, female psychology evolved a highly sophisticated mechanism designed to seek out the highest possible value, a phenomenon modern psychologists refer to as hypergamy. In the modern world, where survival is largely guaranteed by the state, these evolutionary drives have not disappeared. They have simply changed their expression. Today, status is measured in financial capacity, social dominance, physical prowess, and charismatic charm. When a man possesses these qualities in abundance, he becomes a magnet for attention. He is sought after, competed for, and admired. And it is precisely this external validation, the knowledge that other women desire him, that amplifies his value in the eyes of his partner. Women are intensely attuned to social proof. They are natural competitors, and they derive immense social significance from the quality of the man on their arm. If a man is a peasant, not in terms of his birth, but in his spirit, his ambition, and his social standing, his absolute monogamous devotion loses its value. If no one else wants him, his exclusivity is not a prize, it is merely a default setting. He becomes predictable, comfortable, and ultimately, boring. The competitive fire that drives female attraction is extinguished. There is no longer any peak to conquer, no high-status prize to defend. But when a man conducts himself as a king, when he lives with purpose, builds his empire, maintains his physical strength, and commands respect from other men, he creates a naturally competitive environment. His partner knows, consciously or subconsciously, that she must continuously bring her best self to the table to retain her place in his life. The relationship is kept alive by a subtle, healthy tension. This tension is not cruel. It is the natural byproduct of excellence. Marcus Aurelius famously reminded himself to be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but which stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it. When you build a life of genuine status and capability, you become that cliff. You do not need to play childish games to create jealousy. Your lifestyle, your focus, and your refusal to compromise on your standards do the work for you. If you allow yourself to become comfortable, stagnant, and entirely consumed by the routine of domestic security, you must not be surprised when the passion in your relationship dies. You have removed the adventure. You have removed the king, and in his place, you have offered a servant. And a servant, no matter how loyal, can never command the raw, primal desire of a queen. Act V. The Law of Polar Energetics. We must now address a highly delicate, yet vital aspect of attraction, the law of relational polarity. We live in a society that strives for absolute equality, flatness, and symmetry in all areas of life. We are told that relationships should be perfect 50-50 partnerships, business-like arrangements where every expense, every chore, and every decision is split down the middle. But while this corporate model of romance sounds excellent in theory, it is a catastrophic failure in practice. It completely ignores the biological reality of sexual polarity. Polarity requires two opposing forces to create an energetic current. If both poles are positive or both are negative, there is no spark, no current, and no attraction. In the realm of romance, this polarity is defined by the archetypal masculine and feminine energies. And let us be entirely clear, femininity is highly conditional upon the presence of strong, competent, and providing masculine leadership. When you force a relationship into a transactional 50-50 split, where you demand that a woman pay half the rent, half the dinner bill, and split every minor resource, you are actively dismantling her ability to step into her feminine nature. You are forcing her to operate in her masculine energy, to worry about survival, resources, and logistics. In doing so, you cease to be a leader in her eyes. You become a roommate, a business partner, a peer. If you want a woman to be truly feminine with you, to be soft, cooperative, loyal, and nurturing, you must assume the full responsibility of the masculine pole. This means taking ownership of the financial, physical, and strategic direction of the relationship. It means providing the security that allows her to let down her guard and surrender her masculine defenses. This is not about spoiling someone or allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. Indeed, the sovereign man never allows his resources to be used by those who do not respect his frame. But it is about understanding your lane. If you are the man, the responsibility of provision, protection, and direction belongs to you. Epictetus wrote, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." If you want to be the leader of your household, you must act like a leader. You do not ask a partner to carry the weight that belongs on your shoulders. When you assume this responsibility, the entire dynamic shifts. A woman who respects your leadership does not look to argue over minor details. She does not bring chaos into your life. She seeks to support you, to be a source of peace, and to maintain the sanctuary of your home. But if you shirk this duty, if you complain about the cost of dinner, demand she work harder to pay her share of your lifestyle, and act as a dependent rather than a provider, you destroy the polarity. You will receive neither her respect nor her desire. You will get exactly what you have built, a cold, transactional partnership with no passion, no polarity, and no longevity. Act 6. The Sovereign Frame. This brings us to the final, and perhaps most critical, pillar of our exploration, the cultivation of the sovereign frame. To dominate your environment, both physically and socially, is not an act of loud, aggressive bravado. True dominance is quiet. It is an unshakable presence that commands respect without ever having to raise its voice. Let us consider how this dominance manifests in social dynamics. In any group of human beings, there is always an unwritten hierarchy. There is a leader, someone whose opinion holds more weight, whose composure is most stable, and around whom others naturally coalesce. Women are incredibly perceptive of these social hierarchies. They do not merely look at your individual traits, they look at how you are received by the tribe. If you are a man who is passive, hesitant, and constantly seeking approval from your peers, she will sense it immediately. Even if you are physically attractive, your lack of social dominance will quietly erode her attraction. She wants to be with the man who sets the pace, not the man who desperately tries to keep up. This principle of dominance extends to the most intimate spaces of your life. It is found in the way you communicate, the way you make decisions, and the way you hold physical space. Consider the difference between a man who asks for permission, who hesitates, and who is paralyzed by the fear of causing discomfort, and a man who leads with absolute certainty. When you plan a date, You do not ask her where she wants to go, what she wants to do, or what time works best. You do not burden her with the cognitive load of decision-making. You set the frame. You tell her where to be, what to wear, and what to expect. This is not control for the sake of tyranny. It is leadership for the sake of comfort. It allows her to relax into her feminine energy, knowing that a competent hand is at the wheel. This physical and social dominance is not something you can fake. It cannot be put on like a costume for a weekend. It must be forged through the slow, daily accumulation of self-discipline, physical training, and emotional control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your mind is filled with hesitation, weakness, and a desperate desire to please, your body, your voice, and your presence will reflect that dye. But when you train yourself to stand firm, to welcome challenge, and to hold your ground against the storms of life, you develop an unyielding posture. When you enter a room, you do not look around to see if you are accepted. You occupy the space as though it already belongs to you. You do not react to emotional outbursts or cheap provocations. You remain calm, centered, and detached. This is the sovereign frame. It is the ultimate antidote to the chaos of modern relationships. When you possess it, you stop trying to force others to behave the way you want. You stop begging for loyalty, fighting for attention, or crying over betrayal. You simply state your terms, lead with excellence, and let the world adapt to you. Act 7. The Return to the Citadel. We have journeyed through the darkest corridors of human attraction, stripping away the comforting lies that keep men weak, passive, and perpetually frustrated. We have looked at the reality of competition, the necessity of emotional buffers, the evolutionary drives of hypergamy, the natural law of polarity, and the absolute power of the sovereign frame. These are not easy truths to digest. They require you to abandon the childish hope of an effortless, perfectly fair world, and to step instead into the arena of cold, pragmatic reality. But do not mistake this reality for a tragedy. Far from it. When you accept that attraction is governed by these unyielding laws, you are no longer at their mercy. You no longer have to live in fear of what your partner is thinking, who she is looking at, or whether she will stay. You realize that your only true task is to master yourself, to build your body, to refine your mind, to increase your status, and to fortify your own internal citadel. Let the waves of the world beat against your cliffs. Let the shifting winds of desire blow as they will. You remain firm. You are the leader of your own life, the provider of your own security, and the author of your own destiny. When you cultivate this unshakable Stoic presence, you will notice a strange thing happen. The very world that once seemed so chaotic, so unfair, and so difficult to navigate will begin to align itself with your frame. People will seek your approval. Women will be drawn to your strength, not because you forced them to be, but because in a world of weak, anxious, and directionless men, a sovereign leader is the rarest and most beautiful thing there is. Go forth, then. Build that life. Fortify that mind. And become the man you were always meant to be.